had asked the kasha on Rashi. The Gemara cites the pasuk. How do we know that if a person marries a non-Jewish woman, the marriage is not effective? Because it says lo sischating. So what does it mean lo sischating? That regarding a non-Jew, chitun, the concept of marriage has no relevance. Right? That's how Rashi Tosa has the question for Gemara in Yivomis, because the Gemara in Yivomis says that lo sischating is begirusan lo begiyusan. It's only after one of the 7 nations converts to be a Jew, the Torah says you're not permitted to marry them. But as a non-Jew, the pasuk's not speaking about marrying a non-Jew. Says, if so, how could the Gemara here apply this pasuk to pre-conversion? The pasuk's speaking post-conversion. That was Tosa's question on Rashi. Okay.
Why the 7 nations though?
No, but that's the Gemara. There's a separate provision.
No, but I mean, why even say that? Let's say next 7 nations can't even marry at all.
No, which means if actually they converted, right? So nevertheless, it's like it's an illegitimate Jew. You're not permitted to marry them. That's what the Gemara says. I need a pasuk because they're Jewish. It's not a mamzer. It's the equivalent of a mamzer. Just as you're not permitted to marry a mamzer, it's valid. It's like marrying a mamzeris. The way we rule, not like Rabbi Akiva. So he said, "Lekach pirush Rabbeinu Tam." Now this is Rabbeinu Tam. If you take Rabbeinu Tam throughout Shas, Rabbeinu Tam's position is whenever the Gemara quotes a pasuk, the Gemara, although may bring a pasuk, either the pasuk it doesn't mean that particular pasuk, because that pasuk is communicating the concept. It means another pasuk. So rather than speak in a more lengthy manner, it's using it almost like a reference point to understand what we're trying to communicate. Or Rabbeinu Tam holds this throughout Shas that very often the Gemara may quote a pasuk, and the proof is from the conclusion of the pasuk, not the beginning of the pasuk. And that's what he's going to show over here. What says lo sischatein. Lo sischatein is referring to the 7 nations after they convert, not the freak. The Gemara Maisi Kro lo sischatein habi kamo v'gomer u'mesevi de Kro dorish. That we're extrapolating from the pasuk that if you marry a non-Jew, it's not valid. It's from the conclusion of the pasuk, not from the beginning of the pasuk. D'chsiv bitcha lo sitei libno bito lo sikach libincho. What does it mean? It says you should not give your daughter to his son, and his daughter should not lo tikach. What is lo tikach? Lo tikach means not to marry. Mash shem bo kicho. Okay, that's Rabbeinu Tam. So it's not lo sischatein is referring to the 7 nations after they convert. But when it says as non-Jews, you should not give your daughter to his son, and you should not take his daughter for your son. So it says tikach. So Tosis is going to ask a question in a moment. We had the Hekish. Right? We quoted a pasuk that if you marry an incestuous relationship, it's not valid. It's not a valid marriage. So Mar asked the question, maybe that's l'chatchila, maybe b'diavad it is. That was the Mar's question. Maybe when it says lo sikach, isha elachosa lo sikach, it means what? It means l'chatchila. But maybe b'diavad, maybe it is valid. So Mar says, I have another pasuk. I have 2 psukim. So the other pasuk tells me not only l'chatchila, even b'diavad, if you marry an incestuous relationship, it's not a valid marriage. So Tosis is going to ask here, if you tell me the basis not to marry a non-Jewish woman is because it's lo sikach, but it only says once lo sikach. We don't have 2 psukim. So maybe over here, when it says lo sikach means l'chatchila, you should not marry her. But if you marry the non-Jew, maybe the marriage is an effective marriage, and maybe she would need a get. Right? That's Tosis' question on Rabbeinu Tam. The Hiksha, Rabbeinu Yaakov Orleans came from Orleans. Okay? Okay? Hiksha Rabbi Yaakov Orleans, Ve'ema Hani L'chatchila, Avo B'di'evet, Tovsa Bo Kedushin, Kechai Gavno Amalel, as the Gemara said earlier. Gabi Lo Yukach Ish Es Eshes Oviv, right? Says you're not permitted to marry a woman who's in waiting, an aunt who falls to Yibum, to a father. It says the nephew cannot marry the wife of his father's brother who fell to Yibum. So the Gemara says maybe the marriage is not a marriage, that's only chatchila. Maybe, but factually, if he marries her, maybe the marriage is a marriage. So the Gemara says we have 2 psukim, but here we don't have 2 psukim. We only have 1 pasuk. So how do we know? Maybe if you marry a non-Jewish woman, maybe the marriage is a marriage. Same thing. Same thing. Look, we have 1 pasuk. It says lo sikach. You should not take his daughter for your son. But we said lo sikach is not sufficient. Lo sikach maybe l'chatchila you shouldn't. But maybe b'di'evet if you did, maybe the marriage is a marriage. Exact same thing. First, the Gemara said earlier, we're going according to the opinion that marrying a chayv kiddushin, it's not a mamzer. Right? Remember? No, so we're going similar. V'tiritz Rabbeinu Yitzchok Shayish. Okay? I'm not sure which one we shown him this is. So he says, Rabbeinu Yitzchok Shayish answered, Deinoch. He says something interesting. Elos Somach alos ischatin. Valotikach. We have two psukim. It says Lotikach and it says Los ischatin. At the beginning. So the Torah is reiterating. That means L'chatchil and B'di'evet. But we asked the question, but the post Los ischatin is post-conversion, not pre-conversion. It says something interesting. Now we yes. Va'aval gav dom Los ischatin. Iri begerus, but the Gemara says in Yevamos, the Los Chatin speaking post-conversion, not pre. Hani libovse dana maskona di alfina lo tavsi b'kedushin krachrina. The Gemara, we're not finished with the Gemara. We have another one that says, Isha v'yolder tieladu neo. The Gemara quotes another pasuk that what? Why the marriage is not effective when you marry a non-Jew. The Gemara in Yevamos, that we're interpreting Los Chatin, it's post-conversion. That's after the conclusion of this Gemara. After this Gemara concludes that we have that extra pasuk, so I don't need Los Ischatin any longer to tell me pre-conversion. So I say, what is Los Ischatin speaking? That even if they should convert, you're not permitted to marry them. Okay? But right now, the Gemara here was speaking prior to that. The Gemara in Yevamos that interprets Los Ischatin is speaking in the context of after she converted, you're not permitted to marry them. That's after I know that if you marry a non-Jew, it's not a marriage. Lo tikach, and we have another pasuk. The Gemara says, "Ishu yadal tiela adonel." The Gemara, that's the conclusion of the Gemara over here. Okay, because the Gemara is going to say we don't, because it's superfluous. So if it's superfluous, what do we need Los Ischatin for? So therefore, we're forced to say it's post-conversion. But without the conclusion of the Gemara, I'd say Los Ischatin means you're not permitted to marry a non-Jew if they're members of the 7 nations of Canaan. Okay. Aval ila fochi, but if not for the conclusion of Gemara, tov hoyol lo krod lo schati nomad lo tasubo kiddushin mulukma begerus. If I have a choice between one or the other, what is the context the Torah is speaking about? Don't take his daughter for your son, and your daughter should not be given to his son. We're speaking of the goyim. Then it's not post-conversion. That's simply what it means. As a result of that, it's preferable. But what happens? But if it's not needed. Because I have 2 other psukim to tell me that if you marry a non-Jew, it's not effective. So how do I interpret Los Ischatin? Therefore, because I have no choice, I say it's post-conversion. That even after, if they should convert, nevertheless, there's a prohibition, you're not permitted to marry them. Okay? We'll see. Well, let's see the Gemara inside now. Back to the Gemara. Now the Gemara asks a question. Hu b'shiva goyim ksiv? Shar umas minolon? Right now we're going to get into the other psukim. The Gemara asks, we cite the Pasuk Los Ischatin, which speaks specifically about the Shiva Amim, the 7 nations of Canaan. So maybe the Torah says if you marry one of the women who are the 7 nations of Canaan because they're devout pagans, so there's a concern that if you marry them, they'll influence the child. That's why the Torah says the marriage is not a marriage. But other goyim, other nations, which are not the Shiva Amim, not the 7 nations of Canaan, maybe there, if you marry their daughters, maybe the marriage is a marriage. That's the first question. Why? Shar umas minolon amakrok yose bincho l'rabas kol hamisirim. Because the Torah says because the Gemara doesn't have to give us a reason. The Gemara says you should not marry a non-Jew. So if it would be the Shiva Amimim, what does they have to give me a reason? Because they're going to remove your child from me. You're not permitted to marry them. So the words kiyoses bincho, the rabbis call them yisirim. Anyone who's a pagan, anyone who's not Jewish, because they could have that level of influence, that's why the marriage is not a marriage. So the pasuk Los Ischatin, if I'd only have that alone, I'd say it's limited to the Shiva Amimim. But because the Torah writes in addition, kiyoses bincho me'achrai, that it comes to include every non-Jew, that the marriage is not a marriage. Okay? That's it's only superfluous if you, according to Reb Shimon, because Reb Shimon, even if the Torah would not state its case, Reb Shimon is Dorish Taimid Akro. Reb Shimon goes and he has an understanding of the philosophical reason for the basis for the provision. El Rabbona my taimo. But according to the Chacham, lo Yosef bin Chameachra is not superfluous. Oh, the Torah has to tell me, why are you not permitted to marry a non-Jewish woman? Because they're going to turn your child into a pagan. Because they're devout pagans. According to Reb Shimon, even if Torah wouldn't have written Ki Yosef bin Chameachra, I understand that's the reason. We're saying Ki Yosef bin Chameachra comes to include other nations. So according to Reb Shimon, where if the Torah wouldn't have written that, I would have understood that myself. Because Reb Shimon is Dorsh Time in the Crow. He's able to come upon the understanding, even if the Pasuk doesn't say it, he says that is the basis. No. That's 7. It is speaking of the 7 nations. Wait. If we would just say Los Eschate, even if Torah wouldn't have written Ki Yosef bin Chameachrai, I would understand that's why. That is the reason why the Torah doesn't want you to marry the 7 nations. Because they're more devout regarding idolatry than all other nations. So what does Torah have to write? Ki Yosef bin Chameachrai. It's superfluous. The answer is any pagan, any non-Jew has relevance to that, even if he's not a member of the 7 nations, the provision also applies. But according to the Chachomim, that unless the Torah states it, we don't know it. So Ki Yosef bin Chameachrai is not superfluous. So the Torah is going to explain why are you not permitted to marry one of the 7 nations of Canaan, because Ki Yosef bin Chameachrai. So if that's the case, how do I know? Other nations, Goyim, which are not of the nations of Canaan. How do we know if you marry one of them, the marriage is not a marriage? Okay, that's the first question. But my taimo, omakro, it says now. So now we're introducing a new pasuk, Yefas Torah. The Torah says that if you see a non-Jewish woman on the battlefront, and you have an interest, you have a desire for it, you bring her home, she undergoes a process of conversion, and then you could take her as a wife. So when could you take her as a wife? Only once she converts. So it seems to be the Torah saying, but before that, prior to that moment, you cannot take her as a wife. It says, V'achach tovo eleo v'alto, mechlal de meikoro, lo tafsi bo kiddushin. So it's inferred from that, until the process is complete, you cannot marry her. So the Gemara says, okay, so we've established from the pasuk of Achad Tovo Eleo Ba'alto, right, from that pasuk of Yifas Torah, we prove that if you marry a non-Jew, it's not a valid marriage. According to the Rabbanon, even though we don't have Lo Yosef Bincho, right? So now I have 2 psukim. Right? I have Achad Tovo Eleo Ba'alto, and I have the Lusikach at the end of the pasuk. No, over there it's speaking, it's clearly the context that it's marriage. It's marriage. It's not just you're permitted to cohabit with her. Right? No. That's the next question. No, that's not Mom's. Now, it's the next question. That how do we know the child is a non-Jew? If we're saying the pasuk which tells us that the child identifies with the mother, if she's not Jewish, that's Shiva Abimim. So we're bringing a pasuk that any non-Jew, when are you permitted? After they convert. Prior conversion, marriage is not a marriage. Now, let's see a father or child from that child. How do we know the child's not Jewish? Maybe the child's Jewish. By the Shiva Abimim, it's clear the child's not Jewish. But maybe other nations, maybe the child is Jewish. That's the next question. Ashkan lo tafsi bo kiddushin v'lo de kamosim in olon. How do we know that the child assumes the same status as she? It's not Jewish. Omakro kisiel ish v'yoldulo. It says kisiel sieno liish kol hechad karina kisieno karinem be v'yoldulo. Kol hechad lo karinem be kisieno. The pasuk says kisieno. If the tieno, which infers marriage, then it's violdolo. Then the children are low, identify with the father. Kol hechad karim be kisieno karinim be violdolo. Kol hechad lo karinim be kisieno lo karim violdolo. Okay, So now we're back to another question. There's nothing superfluous in the Torah. So if this pasuk tells me that if a marriage has no relevance to a woman, the child is what? The child is not Jewish. So what do we do with the pasuk by Shifra Kananis? The Gemara said originally, if a person fathers a child from a Shifra Kananis, the child is what? Assumes the status of a slave. Right? That we quoted a pasuk. What do we need the pasuk? We already established that you cannot marry Shifra Kananis. So once we establish that marriage has no relevance to the Canaanite woman, so then we automatically know that the child's not Jewish. So why did the Gemara have to quote a pasuk? That the children also become the chattel of the master. Right? The Gemara says, how do we know Veloda Kamosa if a person fathers a child from Shifra Kananis? That the child is an Eved, because it says, the woman and her children belong to the master. What do we need that pasuk? To tell me that the child's like the woman. We have this pasuk. The pasuk says, wherever you have marriage, the child identifies with the father. If the woman is not marriageable, then the child doesn't identify with the father. So the Gemara asks, Ihochi shivcha nami? Enochi nami? Elo ishu ildeo tilador elomali? So what do I need the pasuk? What do I learn from there? L'chretanya, okay? Ha'omer l'shivchoso. A person's a master. He owns a Canaanite woman, and he has the ability to emancipate her. When she emancipates her, what happens? She becomes Jewish, and he says, "Harei at paschorin uvlodoch evid." Here, you're emancipated, but the child that you're carrying remains an evid. I'm not emancipating the unborn fetus. What's the status of the unborn fetus now? Does the unborn fetus retain the slave status, or do we say no? We see the mother and the child as one entity. It's like saying to a woman, I'm emancipating you except for your arm. Right? Doesn't mean anything, right? You emancipate the person's emancipated. So if the person wants to differentiate between the unborn fetus and the mother, can he make such a differentiation? So Rabbi Yosef Agli said, Om l'shivcha harei at paschor v'lodach eved havalat kamosa. The child assumes the status of the mother. You can't separate between the mother and Div Rabbi Yosef Aglili. That's Rabbi Yosef Aglili's position. Chum omrim, no. Dvarv kayomim. Chum said, no, you could. You could split the two. The mother is emancipated. When the child will be born, the child is born as a slave. Shenemar. The woman and her children belong to the master. Somewhere it's my Talmudah. It seems to be this is not the Chachomim. The Chum say you could split the two. The mother's emancipated, the child is not. On that, Omerava, Ad Rabbi Yosef Agli, this posuk which is being cited in the Brisa, that's going back on Rabbi Yosef Agli. Just as when she's not emancipated, we see the mother and the children have the same status. So when you emancipate them, the children and the mother also have the same status. If the mother's emancipated, the unborn fetus is also emancipated. No, that's a separate entity. Vilodeo means her children. Doesn't make a difference, that is. Of course. According to... There's no connection. That child is not related to the mother, only biologically. I mean, if you slaughter the mother and find the child inside, then pakur. That's something else, because the Torah says, but it's based on a different pasuk. How do we know? That's a pasuk. It's based on the pasuk. No, because it's... No, there's a separate pasuk there. No, it's a separate pasuk. The Torah says, Kol ba'behema tochelu. Whatever you find within the animal, you're permitted to eat. I'll give you an example. If you slaughter an animal or you permit to eat its chaylev, you're not. But the chaylev of the ben pakua, you're permitted to eat. Right? And this doesn't need shechita. No, but I'm saying it's not because when you slaughter the mother, it's like you slaughter the unborn fetus, the unborn calf. The Torah says whatever is found in the animal, you're permitted to eat. So if that's what there says, that includes the chaylev of the calf, the unborn calf. You don't see its chaylev as a separate entity of chaylev. No, it's not. Chaylev is a specific location in the animal. That's not permitted, but the chaylev of the calf, the unborn calf, that you're permitted to eat. This is on the Torah level. You're permitted to eat it. Why? Because kol behemoth ochelu. Whatever you find within the animal, you're permitted to eat. That's what the Torah says. It's kosher. So he did his he does his his biology. You know, cow only eats grass, doesn't eat. Okay. It's a Gemara. It's a Gemara in Bechoros. Okay. Gemara says that once an animal, any animal, digests something, and it's in its system for a certain period of time, it's considered just waste. It's called perish ba'alma. An animal drinks something, and there's liquid in its stomach. What's the status of the liquid? Once it goes into its stomach. If it chews it up, swallows it, goes in, then that's considered. It's already, the transition is taken. It's called perish. It's called waste.
So, do you take straight or apparel if, let's say someone, hurts the pregnant woman and takes the fetus to the board?
Torah speaks about explicitly.
So that person pays
the value,
fine.
not a fine, restitution.
Restitution, but that person isn't treated as if it's killed a person.
Because it's not a living human being.
Right. So, I mean, you can say something similar here that the fetus is part of the mother as opposed to being its own person.
I understand.
Because here we're saying it's a separate person, so you're gonna.
That's discussion. Do you look at the fetus, since the fetus will ultimately be born, right? So the question is, do you see them as two, or do you see them as one? So it's based on the pasuk.
Right. So.
Right. So the pasuk says they go hand in hand. You can't separate between the two. That's Rabbi Yosef Glili. Chum say no. You could separate. The pasuk I use for something else. You do separate between the two because this pasuk is not referring to this particular case.
But the Torah treats that fetus.
Could I ask you a question? If a person goes and injures a person and loses the usage of his hand, do you have to pay the value of the hand? You pay the value of the hand. Why?
Yeah.
So the fetuses, if the woman miscarries due to the injury, so you have to pay. That's like part of the woman was lost.
Right. That's
Yeah, but it does. But again, it has nothing to do with the woman. For who do you pay it to? You don't pay it to the woman. You pay it to her husband. Over there it says nos b'flili. Right, two people are fighting. One injures the woman, causes her to miscarry. So the damager has to pay the husband the value of the fetuses. You don't pay the woman. The financial payment is the restitution is made to the husband, not to the mother.
But we don't treat that person as if he killed.
Because it's not a living human being. It's not a living human being. No, life. You're only liable for murder if you take a life. Life is only once the child was born.
How is
So
the child considered not considered according to something? It would make sense that it would not be considered a vehicle of the sin.
That's regarding murder. It's murder. It has no relevance to this. It has to be a full life. To be liable for murder, you have to take a full life. A full life is only once the child enters into this existence. Prior to enter, it's not a full life.
And we can't apply that here because here we're saying that there's an opinion that it's not a life. And that
It has nothing to do with life. It has nothing. This is not a life issue here. Could you separate between the unborn fetus and the mother regarding emancipation? That's the discussion over
That's
here.
not part of the mother. That's not a life.
If not for the person, everybody would agree. You see the fetus as an appendage of the mother, and therefore when you free the mother, the fetus is also emancipated. If not for the pasuk.
The pasuk separates the two.
The pasuk says no. The pasuk says you see them as one. You cannot separate the two. The pasuk says you cannot separate the two. But if not for the pasuk, I would be able to separate the two. The other way. The pasuk tells me I don't separate. Because they go hand in hand. But if not for the pasuk, you could separate. Because ultimately the fetus will be a separate entity. I'll give you an example. If I sell you a tree, and I'm selling you, I own the tree, I'm selling you, and you're in the opinion, Adam Maktav Shalom Olam. You could sell something which hasn't yet come to existence because it's meant to come to existence. I'm selling you 2016 yield of the fruits. Could I sell it to you? I could sell it to you. What do you mean? But it's one and the same of the tree. No, the yield is a separate entity. It's something which will come about. Because of what will happen, you see it as a separate entity. The child will be born. I'm emancipating the woman, but not the child. The ownership of the child I'm retaining. We're talking about ownership. So if that's the case, the child will be born. The child will be born as a slave. The Pasuk says no. Whatever the status of the mother is, that is the status of the child. You can't differentiate between the status of one and the other. You emancipate one, the other goes hand in hand with the other. That's what the Pasuk says. It's a machloks rishonim. It's a machloks rishonim. If the child is born, was conceived before, that's the whole story with Tamar and Amnon. Tamar and Amnon. She was conceived before she was Jewish, and then she was born after the conversion. So she really wasn't David's halachic daughter, right? So therefore, it wasn't a brother marrying a sister. There's a machlokas in Girsa. There's a machlokas in Girsa. Is the person permitted to cohabit with the woman on the battlefront before he brings her back? Once he brings her back, everybody agrees he can no longer cohabit with her. But the question is, he permitted to cohabit on the battlefront with her? Okay. So he cohabited with a non-Jewish woman. She's not Jewish. What? So if the child was conceived, that child will be born without a father. Yeah. No. A non-Jewish woman has relations with a Jew, and she converts before she gives birth. What's the child? The child's born a Jew, but the child has no father, because the child was conceived from a non-Jewish woman. So the pedigree doesn't identify with the father, right? That's the halacha. He's a halachic Jew. That's called Horosa Shel Kedusha V'Leidosa B'Kedusha. The impregnation was not in the state of Kedusha, but the birth was in the state of Kedusha. Selling is two separate things. I could sell the leg of an animal, right? That's the physical entity. Here we're talking about a status. What is the status of the child? I don't need the pasuk tell me. You own the hind quarter, I own the front quarter of an animal. That's why we buy the animal. It's not a problem. Right? I don't need psukim for that. That's dividing value.
How do we know that the child of a non-Jewish, non-paying woman takes after the mother? So how do we know that? What is the actual proof of that?
We quoted pasuk Ki Yosef Bidcho. That's according to Reb Shimon. The words, they will remove your child from me to become pagans. According to Reb Shimon, that pasuk is superfluous. Okay? So that's how we know. So what about according to the Chachamim? Where that pasuk is? That's we quoted another pasuk. It says, we learn from Eshes Yifas Torah. You're only permitted to her only after she converts. Prior to conversion, she's not permitted to you. Meaning, marriage has no relevance there. And we have a pasuk that says the child and marriage go hand in hand. If she's marriageable, then the child identifies with you. If she's not married, then the child does not identify with you. So first we establish there's no marriage. And once she's not marriageable, now the ramification of that is the child does not identify with the father. Well, no, we learn from the woman on the battlefield that she's not marriageable until after the conversion. So once I say that, so marriage has after 30 days.
Is there a conversion after 30
Yes,
days?
after 30 days the conversion. He could send her off if he chooses.
I understand, but 30 days,
right?
mikvah,
Everything. Mikvah, and she accepts mitzvahs, and she becomes Jewish. Right. But prior to that time, he can marry her, cannot marry her. Okay? Now, so we've established she's not marriageable. Now, how do we know a woman you cannot marry that the child identifies with the mother and not with the father? So quoting other pasuk, it says, Kisiyan liish v'yoldu lo. If it has kiddushin, then the child identifies with the father. Yoldu lo, they are born to him. But if it's not siyeno, if marriage has no application, no relevance, the child, when it's born, has no identification with him, with the father, the one who actually impregnated the woman. That's the conclusion of the Gemara.
So a Jewish man can take a non-Jewish woman all day long and go to court to marry her. There's nothing.
Nothing. The child is not his child. I mean,
There's no marriage.
there's no marriage, and if there's a child, the child's not his child.
Not his child.
Correct.
Biologically,
Biologic is his child. Correct. Okay. Yeah, it doesn't make a difference because you have to work out the psukim. Nobody argues in halacha. Regarding this, we rule like Chachamim that you could split the mother and because the pasuk is not superfluous here. But in terms of a non-Jewish woman not being marriageable, nobody argues. The child identifies with the mother, again, nobody argues. Okay, let's.
I just want to say something just outside this to tell you where the country is. So we are looking at a new business development right now. A new business development. It's a company that makes the product to determine paternity. And it's a booming business because 40% of children in this country today are born out of wedlock. And the question is, who is the father? And it has all kinds of legal
Just
ramifications.
read a number of. I told you the case. The twins. Woman gave birth to twins, and each child had a different father. They did a DNA on it because they weren't. It's not. There were two different eggs. She had, and within she conceived from two different men, two different fathers. No, it's possible.
It's not the product, it's the company that actually...
The process.
The process that does
Right.
the testing.
Right.
And it's growing like this.
Yeah.
It has all kinds of legal ramifications.
Definitely.
That's the-
Paternity suits, the whole idea. Who has the financial obligation? They have paternity tests at the cash register.
The product.
Yeah.
Now you have to send that to a lab. This company is the lab.
Okay? Okay. Yep. Reb Tarfa Nomer. Okay? They say often okay. Reb Tarfa Nomer. Now the question is, if you have a person as a mamzer, could a mamzer purge that defect from his line? He is a mamzer. Let's say now he has a child. He marries a Gioris. A mamzer is permitted to marry a Gioris, so she's a kosher Jew. The marriage is permitted. We had earlier, Hakol Holech Achar Pagam. Havlat Holech Achar Pagam. The child carries the blemish of whichever parent has the blemish. So that means he cannot purchase from his progeny. This is continuously passed down. So is there a way where a mamzer can actually purge it from his line? So Reb Tarfon says, Yicholim mamzer litayr. There's a way we could actually purify his line. We could purge his line from this illegitimacy. Ketzad, mamzer shenosa shivcha. A mamzer marries a Canaanite woman. We'll see in a moment. Havalat Eved. So now what is the child? The child is a slave. And what is this? The child? So the child now does not identify with the father. Right? The child does not identify because there's an issue of Leti Eladonel. Now the master chooses to emancipate the slave. So it's what? So the child is what? Is a convert. A mamzer. There's no provision for a mamzer. It's not a marriage. It's not a marriage. There's no provision. If a mamzer marries a shifcha kanan, the marriage is not a marriage. But the act of cohabitation is permitted. It does. It's using the term. It's like, no, it says, I love my wife, I love my children, Eved Ivri. I mean, he may call her his wife, but it's not his wife, because she's not marriageable. But it means if you would he would take this kind of woman as a wife, not that the marriage is a marriage, and now she would conceive from him, and now the master would emancipate those children of that woman, the kosher children. No, he doesn't have to sell. Right, a mamzer Jew. Well, the Gemara is going to explain. Well, we'll discuss. The Gemara will discuss this now. The Gemara will discuss this. The Gemara will discuss it because there's a prohibition. You're not permitted to cohabit. So what about if he would steal? Let's say. Well, the Gemara is going to discuss that. How could he transgress? Right? The Gemara will discuss all this. The Gemara is going to discuss all this. We had earlier. It's in Machlokes Tanoim that the only time the master is permitted to give a wife to the slave, that's only if he's sold by the court, because he stole. Because since he already violated, we degrade him. But if a man sells himself because of financial hardships, then the master is not permitted to give him a slave woman. Whatever. That's machlok. That's machlokes tanoim also. That's rishonim. This is machlokes tanoim. You know, if he sells himself, he's sold by the court. We'll see in a moment. So Reb Tarfon says, if he fathers a child from the Shifcha Kananis, so the child is born as a slave, Shichro, and then he goes and emancipates the what? The child, Nimtza ben Chorin. So the child now is free, is what? Is a convert, is a ben Chorin. Reb Lezo Omer Hareze Eved Mamzer. That Eved, the child, could have two classifications. It's an Eved Kanani and a Mamzer. Well, the Gemara is going to base it on Psukim. So if it's a Mamzer, so even though the master may emancipate the slave, emancipation only frees him of the Eved status. Of the Mamzer remains. Okay? Now, so Tarfon says we're able to purge the blemish, the defect of Mamzerus, through him fathering a child from the Shivchinanis. The question was, Reb Tarfon l'chatchilu kamar, is this something which is permitted? If factually he was not permitted to engage with her sexually. But if he did and she conceived, then the child that would be born is a slave, and if the master should emancipate that slave is Jewish, is a convert. No, because here Reb Lezer is saying even if post facto the child is an Eved, but the child has a double classification, Eved and Mamzer. So even if the master frees the slave, the blemish of Mamzer remains. The Reb Tarfon says no, that a slave only has one status, Eved, cannot have the status of Mamzer. So if the master therefore frees the slave, that's the most question. If theoretically, no, we want to know what's the status of the child. What is the status of the child? A child that's fathered by a mamzer, is it Eved or it has a double status? If it's a single status, when the child's emancipated, the child's a kosher Jew. Because the blemish carries over to the child. No, maybe that's to identify as him being the father, not. But the Torah says if there's a pagam, if there's a spiritual blemish, that goes on to the child. We're talking about the child is a semi-Jew, right? The child that's born is chayv mitzvahs kisha. The child has halachic obligations. No. Slavery period. It's a semi-Jew. If it would be a goy, it's not even a question. The child's not a mamzer, right? We're talking about.
So if a mamzer had relations with a non-Jewish woman, period, and they had a child, what is this child's status?
Goy, nobody argues. Everybody agrees.
Why not bring that case?
No. Because here you could guarantee the child could be Jewish.
Because when they come out of
A non-Jew who has a child, that's a full-blown conversion. Here, the master, it's not up to the slave to be emancipated. If the master chooses to emancipate, right? To be continued.